Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the Terry Motor Coffee Room here in Chelsea, here in New York City. When I started the Pace Report 14 years ago, there were some things that I wanted to correct as well as improve on in the world of journalism. And one of those things is profile as well as talk to musicians, not only who are very, very important to the idiom of Black American music, but also people who can correct the rights and the wrongs of some of the stories that have been translated and been misconstrued as well as taken out of context. Now, over the years, there have been certain publications since I've started this that have fallen by the wayside because of the technology and the means of how we get the information. Tonight here on the Pace Report, I'm honored to sit down with a legend, an unsung hero in this game of jazz. Victor Lewis is probably one of the most important, if not iconic, drummers of his generation. In fact, Victor played in the very last good run of Stan Getz's career with the legendary Rufus Reid on bass and a.k.a. jazz master pianist Kenny Barron. He's recorded and toured with the likes of Woody Shaw and the great Dexter Gordon. Now tonight here on the Pace Report, he performed with his best friends, a.k.a. on bass, as well as the legendary George Cables on piano, and Frank Lacey on trombone, French horn, and flugelhorn. I had a chance to sit down to talk to him candidly and reflect on his origins growing up in Nebraska, what brought him to New York City, as well as we reflect on modes of how he's teaching the next generation the rudiments and the history of jazz at Rutgers University, as well as sit down and reflect on the legendary Stan Getz. stigma in jazz, and I hate it. I detest it. Again, you know, certain powers that be have written, you know, this thing called smooth jazz, and they lump certain musicians in that. Grover Washington Jr.
No, don't get me started.
David
You
Sanborn.
ever hear Grover Washington play giant steps?
Yeah, I listen.
You know what I'm talking. Okay, okay, I'll shut up.
Listen. I mean, for a guy that's recorded with Grover and played with Grover, and David Sanborn, who's segued back to straight ahead jazz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I gotta ask you, as a musician, what is your take on the classification? Because these terms, I've always been a big fan of David Sanborn and Grover Washington, and it offends me that
I don't like terms, man. I think that terms are useless in terms of art. Art is art. Okay, now the industry needs to put a term on them and see how they want to sell it. This is smooth jazz. This is straight ahead jazz. This is West Coast jazz. This is funk jazz. This is fusion. For them to market it, but it's at the expense of, like, it's all music.
right.
It's all and like a lot of people don't know that David Sanborn, I don't know if he still is, he's taking lessons from George Coleman for a long time.
But his hero is one of my favorite saxophonists, who you got the honor of playing with, the great Hank Crawford.
Don't get me started on that, man. Nah, man, this is one of my, like,
I love Hank Crawford.
badges of honor. Man. Before I even knew the impact of it, I'm like 15 years old when I played with Hank. And so, like, there's a drummer, a good friend of mine. He does a lot of gigs with blues bands, and he talks about how precious they like drummers that have brushes in them. And so I get this gig with Hank Crawford, and like, you know, first tune, brushes. But like, second tune, brushes. Man, I played most of the gig with Hank Crawford. Brushes, man. And like, it's almost like, okay, I was bonkers. I was excited. Come on, this is Hank Crawford. What if I knew what I knew now, I would have really been nervous. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. I mean, because Hank Crawford, Maceo Parker.
Maceo, Sanborn comes out of it.
Yeah, he comes out of all of that. And I was going to say, Maceo, Hank Crawford, David Fathead Newman.
Right.
Those guys are the soul music, as what guys like Lou Donaldson or even
to the tenor, right,
or to jazz music. They very, very important, and they stayed humble with their blues and R&B and their jazz roots, and that was so hard too.
They kept their foot in there.
Yeah, they had to.
They had to. They didn't know no other way, man. That's right. You nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You know, I'm telling you, man. I'm glad you brought cats like Hank Crawford up. You know, because a lot of people. Okay, let me put it like this. Change it. Oh man, this might have been 8 or 10 years ago. He did a master's class at Rutgers, you know, and so I happened to be able to be there then, and so like came the question and answer. So I was the first one to raise my hand, and I said, you know, me and Ting, we've been knowing each other since Moby Dick was started. But I'm saying, you know, a lot of people think that, which is what happens. A lot of think that evolution started with the latest cat on the scene. You know, a drummer. Somebody James, never mind, but like, new cats on the scene. The younger cats think that evolution started with them. Okay, no. It's just that they don't know yet that evolution is evolution. The evolution goes way back. And so like Tane knew what I was asking. You know, like I said, you know, for sure it's like you have your own style, you have your own voice, but could you tell us about who your influences are? Because a lot of times that gets left out. You know, it's like okay, Steve Gadd, for example. A lot of cats thought that shit happened with Steve Gadd, but they didn't ask Steve Gadd who his influences was. You dig what I'm saying? This is all a legacy, man. It gets passed down. Everybody comes from someplace, you know.
Steve Gadd, Bernard Purdie,
man. Harvey Mason.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me started on Harvey, man. You know, let me say this about Harvey. See, I like to give it up to the cats. You know, to the cats. Okay. Everybody knows the tune Take 5. You know, the Paul Desmond and that one and all that. Did you ever hear Harvey Mason's funk version in 4/4 of Take 5? Do me a favor.
I'm
if you remember,
I'm going to look that up.
You gotta visit it because first of all, it's in 4/4 funk. Okay, instead of like it's like and Harvey's playing the melody on vibraphone. 4/4. On vibes. So you're hearing it 4. When you log into it with 4, it's hard to hear it in 5 again. It was hard for me to hear it in 4 after.
And he adapted funk, his language, and brought it to a very new. That's what it's
artistic license, man.
That's it.
That's one of my favorite. And let me tell you, okay, now, not only did he translate it like that, but he takes a vibraphone solo, quoting Paul Desmond. You know, and like, if you're familiar enough with the original Take 5, and so he's quoting Paul Desmond solo, and then he gets to the punchline. Harvey takes the solo on drum in 4/4, but quotes Joe Morello in 4/4. Now talk about giving respect. You know, okay, a lot of us drummers, we know, you know, Joe Morello's solo on Take 5, man. That's a prerequisite,
right?
You know, Harvey translates it to 4/4 funk. You gotta check it out.
I'm gonna check it out.
Now, talk about artistic license and action, man. See, that's the thing. You know, when you check out the history of the music, and then become a rebel, see what you're going to do.
As you're supposed to.
As you're supposed to, man.
That's what hip hop, punk, all of that did that.
All of that came out of that. Because let me tell you, all the legends knew that we had to study them, but they didn't want us to be clones. They wanted us to be rebels because they were rebels. You know, You know, let me tell you, man, it's like there's no bigger rebel than John Coltrane. You know, who took my favorite things,
blew it up.
With
he imploded it.
With what's her name? What's the singer? Mary? No. Huh? Mary Martin. That train took it.
He imploded it.
If you dig what I'm saying, man, and took it another place, you know, and he did it so well. It seemed so organic until when we listened to it, we couldn't really hear it any other way. You know, it was so positive, so solid, so much conviction. You know.
I read something very interesting about you. You had one more semester left before you graduated.
No, you heard that story.
But no. What makes the story so interesting is that you left and you jumped right into the fires. Right as we were talking about earlier, and it seems like one of your heroes, one of the guys that you really looked up to, was Tony Williams, and Tony was 17, 18 years old when he joined my.
When he jumped into the fire.
Right.
You know, yeah, man. Go ahead before I get started.
As one of our elder statesmen who's passing this legacy on, in the classroom, are you telling your students to do the same thing?
I have to temper it because I have to find a way to kind of give them a hint, you know, but I have to be careful because on the real tip, I want to say to the students, whoever's spending all this money for you to go to school, maybe it's better off if you get a little apartment in Brooklyn and just go and hang out and hear the cats play and sound them for a lesson. All that, not just on your instrument. You know, I sound the piano players. Kenny Barron, Kenny Kirkland. I sounded them like, what do you call this? And I would tell them what I thought it was, and they would say, close. Let me tell you what it really is. It's so like, well, you're spending all that time, you're spending all that money at the university, jumping through a lot of hoops that are unnecessary. You could go with it. They used to call them conservatories. Conservatories only dealt with your issue, what you were studying. It wasn't like they call your general studies, so, but you know, whatever. You know, you gotta. Man, let me tell you, man, the worst grade I got in college was in logic. I got a D in logic.
I got an A in logic.
See, what does that say about you? What does that say about me? It's like I didn't get it. My freshman year, got a D in logic. What? Well, it's all good. But the thing about it is that, the thing is like what you're trying to get to. And so back to like my abrupt departure from school. Needless to say, my parents were not. They didn't even find out for a while. Okay, now my youngest sister, who was a diehard fan, she'll fly. She used to fly to gigs with Horizon, Chicago, whatever, because she loved the music so much. So she's 2 years, 2 months and 2 days. So that meant by the time I was a junior, she was going to college. So she knows that I stepped on. Okay, the point of departure, Herbie Hancock came with the M1 issue. Benny Martin, Dr. Eddie Henderson, Patrick Gleason on synthesizer. This is back in the early days when cats were doing that. Jabali, Buster Wade. You know, and like.
That turned you inside out.
It did, because I got a chance to get close to the fire. The reason why was that the program chairman I got in tight with, he would let me have gigs with my band in the student union and stuff. And he's the program chairman. He's a cat who's gonna like bring concerts in or whatever, but he didn't know anything about jazz. And so he would say, Victor, who should I get? should I get this guy so-and-so or should I get this guy, what's his name, Freddie Hubbard? You gotta get Freddie Hubbard. Okay, next year it's like, should I get this guy so-and-so or, you ever heard of this guy named McCoy Tyner? You gotta get McCoy Tyner. and so, this went on year to year. And last year, not to diss a name, but he said, should I get, what's his name, Herbie Mann, or what's this guy, Herbie Hancock? I said, you gotta get Herbie Hancock. And so, he let my band be warm-up band for that. So, we came in the day before the concert. He would let me go and pick them up at the airport. So imagine me. I'm like a little puppy dog, man. I'm a little puppy dog. Can you get this, man? In Lincoln, Nebraska. Next thing I know, I got Billy Hart in my car driving. I mean, you can't buy that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If it means something to you.
Right.
If it means something to you, man. And so, I hung out with these cats for 2 days. I was warm up there for them. I didn't go to another class after that, other than jazz band and orchestra. I didn't finish what I had to do to finish my degree. I just started practicing. I didn't tell my folks. My little sister didn't squeal on me either, and she got busted. Finally, they said, "You knew, didn't you?" I said, "I knew." "Why didn't you tell her?" See, she didn't bust me, but we ended up having a conversation. I said, you know, my mother said something to me when I was a teenager. She said, "Son, I don't care what you do for a living, whether you're a doctor, an accountant, pimp, a hustler, or whatever." She said, "Just be good." And that resonated. So when I made that choice, what I wanted to do, and I reckoned with my folks. I said, "Look, see what I want." I mean, it wasn't the first calling. It had been callings along the way. You got a piece of fuzz on it.
Oh man, thank you.
You're in the camera too.
Yeah.
Right? You dig? There have been callings all along the way, man. And
You knew music was where it was at.
I knew it early on. I knew it, because my mother had a classical piano degree, but also she was like your ultimate piano bar piano player, where they take pride in knowing all the tunes that people request. Like Bobby Short.
Yes.
Your people, yeah, he took pride. Request. See, Namana.
Bobby Short, Freddie Cole.
That's right.
Johnny O'Neill.
That's right.
Those cats know.
They know, man. Johnny O'Neill, I call is the best one who's still among us.
You got it.
Who's from
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Don't get me started about
He
that.
knows over 2,500 songs. He's a walking encyclopedia, and he has to know those songs because no one's singing those songs now.
See, and he comes from back in the day era.
Yeah.
That's what my mother was.
Yeah.
She knew all the stuff. My father attended saxophone player, so I grew up with music, etc. And so, like, I'm bouncing around, 7, 8, 9, everything. And like, I went through a few different instruments because they believed in studying. The first instrument I gravitated toward was the bass. Okay, let me tell you, man, The world should be happy that I'm not a shitty bass player, because 5 years old, have jam sessions at the crib. I'm standing by the bass player, like, he's got my attention. And I'm 5 years old. I'm too small for a bass. So, just to keep me out of trouble, they bought me a cello. Because proportionately, it worked. But they believe in study. They sent me to take lessons on the cello, and the teacher made me pull out the bow, and I'm saying, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? I wanted to get some time.
The bass was
my first calling, but I was too small. So I took cello lessons playing Arco, and then at 7, my folks had me take classical piano for 4 years, 7 to 11. Around 10 or 11, I discovered the drums. It's not like I never noticed it. It's something weird. Okay, so I get to junior high. And like, my father's best friend was my teacher, Luigi Reid. He was a drum guru. And so on. I started studying with him. And I get to junior high. And I want to play drums in junior high. And this is the deep part about wanting to be a participant. Got to junior high.
We're getting a lot of cat play.
I want to play drums. I want to be in the band. I want to play drums. And the band director says, we got too many drummers already. If you want to be in the band, what we need is French horn players. I played French horn in junior high because I wanted to be in the band. That was the whole thing. I didn't even know how to describe it then, man, let me tell you.
Is that why when Frank played French horn, I've noticed a certain spark in you playing.
Oh yeah, and I told him, I said, I admitted to him that I played French horn in junior high.
I noticed that.
I came clean.
Right.
And I also told him, I said, man, mouthpiece of the French horn. It's all in the lip. It's like you can push all the valves you want, but it's all in the lip. You know, as opposed to trumpet.
Yeah.
You know, the trombone even was fun. And see, and I gave it up to Frank. I said, man, between the trombone, French horn, and the trumpet, they are all distinctively different mouthpieces. Not to mention different movements. And he can make that transition.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. Bless his soul. Howard Johnson.
Woo!
He played tuba.
Yeah.
And was switched to baritone
saxophone. That's right.
Come on, everybody fall back, man.
Yeah.
That ain't no joke.
He was a bad boy. He was a
bad
boy,
man.
Yeah.
You know. So this is my deal was, man. I like to have you. And I get emotional about it. And I like to turn into a little puppy.
Victor, I told Joanne before you came over, I said, you played really in the last Stan Getz group. And
With Kenny and Rufus?
yeah, it was Kenny and Rufus. And the Serenity record, the anniversary album, kind of documents the last of the last, the beginning to the end. Stan Getz was a very complicated person.
He was a very complicated person, but he was motherfucker.
Playing, yeah.
Let me tell you another thing about Stan that your just regular listener wouldn't see. His time. Killing. His time was killing and his pitch was killing. Okay, now, can I say a quick story about Stan?
Go ahead.
Okay, now, here's Stan. He was known for that soft, airy tone
Yeah.
when he wanted.
Yeah.
And so me, like a dummy, you know I am. I'm hanging with Stan Getz. I'm gonna pick his brain, right? I said, Stan, man, how do you get that soft, airy tone? It's like, what size of reed do you use? He said, a real soft reed. You know what he told me? And I've talked to other saxophone players about this. He said, no. He plays, okay, it's like the reeds go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 being the hardest. He says, I look for the stiffest number 5. He said, in order to get that soft, airy sound, you gotta have
Tight.
you gotta have like a popsicle stick. But you gotta know how to play. So I learned something.
I wondered if Paul Desmond do that too, because he had.
He might have, because he had that sound too.
Yeah.
That's right, man. Because sometimes cats think that playing soft and airy, you need to have a soft and airy reed. But the laws of physics,
Right.
saxophones, does not necessarily go there.
Right. That's right. And the crazy thing about Stan Getz and even Paul Desmond, there's nobody that like Train, like Dexter Gordon, or Coleman Hawkins. Those cats are one of a kind. You couldn't emulate those.
You're
cats.
one of a kind, man. And see, that's the thing that I say to my students, because I had to deal with it myself. Because the thing about this music is that, okay, you've got your idols. You try to emulate your idols. But because of real life, you can't emulate them as much as you want to. So what you end up is you. It's like I say, Miles. He couldn't play as high like this. He couldn't play as dexterous as Clark Terry.
He didn't need to.
He ended up being a Miles Davis.
Yeah.
It's okay with me.
Right.
Is it okay with you? Yeah, man. And so that's the thing about this music is that find your own individual style.
I have to ask you. We just lost George Morales.
I spent a lot of time with George.
I know.
A lot of time with George. Okay. Can I get started?
Go ahead.
Okay, now. First of all, there are a lot of great American bass players that came out of studying classical. Because with most of the cats back in the day, they didn't go to jazz school. They studied classical approach to their instruments. Okay, now. There's American heavyweights, Ron Carter, etc. And then there are the Eastern Europeans. Let me tell you, because it's like, okay, when I told you, it's like, my roommate said I played this shit like a white boy. They were the original white boys playing shit out of the music on the instrument. You know, okay, now, I don't say that to diss anybody, but it's like every neighborhood.
Right.
See, that's the whole thing, man.
Right.
It's like, that's about ethnomusicology. Every neighborhood has these guys who do this.
Yeah.
And so, like, Eastern European cats with the bowl. Like, of course, Jordan Ross, Miroslav
Mitros.
It's just a thing of the neighborhood. It's like I like to say 5-year-old kids in Puerto Rico grow up knowing the clave.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's your neighborhood.
That's why when we listen to jazz, I mean, Stan Getz was just as bad as Woody Herman.
That's right, man.
Woody Herman was just as good as someone like a Buddy Rich.
That's right.
You know, it didn't have a color to it. They had, like you said, going back to what you said, they had a different voice that they brought to this music.
They had their own lean on it.
Yeah.
See, it reminds me of like one of the deepest things I've heard they say. Certain levels don't get no better, only different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, man?
Right.
It don't get no better, only different.
Right.
You know, you can't weigh him against him. It's like, it's all good.
What was Stan Getz's approach to the band and playing versus someone like a Dexter Gordon or someone like a Woody Shaw?
Okay, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. And this is important. I'm saying. What I learned from Stan Getz, that put another thing on, like finishing touches on my touch. He said, hey, with Woody, like the bass. With Dexter, like the bass.
Oh, yeah.
With Stan, he wanted to be in the bashing mode, but only with a little softer volume. And I've talked about this a lot. What I learned from playing with Stan was like learning how to burn on simmer. When you cook food, simmer is like on the edge of boiling, you know, simmer. If you just turn it out a little bit, it'll flame up. I'll simmer so that we could go from simmer to a little bit of flame, a boil, and then go down, you know, but he liked it at simmer. Stan liked it to be on simmer, not a full-on boil. Well, maybe later.
But that was his style anyway.
Yeah.
With the era of music that the time period. I mean, bossa nova, and then he came back to post bop and even some of the commercial stuff he did. I mean, that was always in Stan's DNA anyway. He gave
also his influence from on him from class.
Yeah.
Big time,
right. He's another cat, and Dexter Gordon too. I think those two stylists brought a very unique voice to what we appreciate as far as the saxophones. Like I don't know anybody that can do Dexter Gordon. I don't think anybody has ever done anything like a Stan Getz.
Yeah.
Or even
they were unique.
Right. Johnny Griffin, those cats.
Johnny Griffin, that's right, man. You know, these guys. Okay, it's funny you mention that. Talking to one of my students at Rutgers Tuesday, I was saying, it's important to understand that singers wanted to emulate the horn players, and the horn players wanted to emulate the singers. Therefore, history was, both of them trying to get what was natural to the opposite instrument. So like you had over the time period, you had trumpet players half ballad, because the voice could do that, and
Louis Armstrong.
You did what I'm saying? And then you had the singers trying to get the horn players. Ella, perfect. You took the words out of my mouth. It's like you had Ella, and stuff like that. And so it's about team ball. It's about everybody looking across to the other instrument, trying to get a little bit of what they got, and it goes both ways.
Are there any musicians that you played with that you accompanied that you just were in awe of when they took the band stage?
You know what?
That were there any vocalists that you accompanied and played behind that you were just, when you were playing, you were just in awe of? Just
There have been a few. I have to tell you this. I did a record and did a few concerts with Abby Lincoln.
my heart.
And so like, I'm sorry, man, I had to give it up. I walked up to her like a little puppy dog before we hit, and I said, it's really a great honor for me to play with somebody who I've had a crush on since a lovable life.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, only like things to say, what Abby Lincoln was. Because she had a lean on how she liked it. And because, let me tell you,
She was
Max was a strong conceptual cat.
And she
a
was
strong, dignified.
Yeah. And I can see how that marriage worked. It didn't work.
Yeah, exactly, both ways.
Both of them were strong. And it's funny you say that, because Abby Lincoln's one of my favorite singers. I got to see her right before she passed away. And how she commands the audience with less is more.
Less is more. See, it comes out of like miles too.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yes.
It's not like you got a wow and throwing all kinds of stuff in her face and everything. Abby had that.
Yeah. And there's a saying, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and her influence was Lady Day, and she was basically less is more.
Yeah.
Now, is it different accompanying a saxophonist versus a vocalist?
It depends on the vocalist. Okay, I'm going to bring up Carmen now. And I've talked to Carmen about this. But it's just like when you realize that, we kind of feel the same way. Carmen really didn't want cats to play with her as a singer. It was out in front, the diva. She wanted cats to play with her like another instrument in the band.
So she can work harder.
So she can, because see, Carmen is not just a singer. Carmen is a musician. Carmen is a composer. Carmen is a visionary. I've known Carmen for 40 years.
She and her brother,
let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. It's like, like siblings, right? Curtis is strong cat, conviction. Carmen could turn Curtis into a little puppy dog. It's like when I say, you want to see me turn into a little puppy dog? Let my older sister, who's 89 years old, Richetta, reprimand me. So she would go, Curtis! They say there's a paddle for every act.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I set up the piece about why I started the Pace Report and why it was very important to have musicians like yourself have to set the record straight. Because I always felt, as a drummer, and what you've contributed to the music, your name, we got to put your name and elevate your name a little higher because of the fact that, one, you're in the education field and you are grooming the next generation, but two, the caliber of musicians that you've played have made a very important impact on how a lot of these cats are playing now. The Young Lions, even the Cubs under the Young Lions, they look at Stan Getz and they look at Woody Shaw and those records that you played and you toured with. They look at that and like, man, you contributed to some very important caliber of Black American music.
They might say, is he still alive?
I just and I feel that it is time for it is your time. I think it is time for not just the fact, not just to ride your coattails, just what I just said. It's just the fact that the jazz press has been very, they ostracize people that should never have been ostracized. And they put people on these platforms and pedestals that I've got to take off the pedestal. And that was one of the things. There's a method in the madness of what I do at the Pace Report. There's some things that we have to recondition.
I'm feeling you, man.
And you're one of the drummers who, within the last 50 years, you're up there with Billy Hart. You're up there with Louis Nash. You're up there with some of your contemporaries who are still around doing their thing. And I have to ask you, how do you feel about that?
My feelings about that, and I'm glad that you brought it up because this is a real important thing. Okay. I grew up in Nebraska, not exactly on the beaten path of the hip scene of the music, but stuff came through, and we had records we could go buy, etc. The first time I came to New York, it was during Christmas vacation. I'm like, after my sophomore year, during my sophomore year, I had a friend who went to the University of Nebraska who went home to visit his folks at a place of crash. Came for 3 days. I didn't go see the Empire State Building.
You went to the Jazz Club.
I didn't go see the Statue of Liberty. I went to the Jazz Club.
I know you did.
And I saw, you have to understand, this is like 68, 69. I saw 3 cats that I never heard of before. And this is even before Modern Drummer came out. We weren't on the covers of Modern Drummer. We weren't on the covers of Downbeat yet. We would later become household names. Okay, now.
Who were they?
Billy Cobbler. Playing a small 3-piece kick with a band called The Dreams. You gotta be old enough to know what The Dreams. The Dreams ended up later being the Becker Brothers.
That's right. That's right.
Because Michael and Randy
That's right.
were
That's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
And a sidebar to that. Billy played with Randy when they were playing with Horace Silver.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So their connection.
See, a lot of people don't know that Billy Common played with Horace Silver.
That's right.
See, a lot of cats just think of him as being the dynamic.
No, and another sidebar to that. Billy, I gotta ask this, because every time I see Billy, he never tells me the story, but he was very important. He was one of the key players on those Creed Taylor records in the 70s.
And he did a lot of Creed Taylor.
Yes,
CTI.
Yes. And the one story that I gotta get him to finish telling me is the story of the Milt Jackson Sunflower record, because one of my favorite records. But Billy is important because he can play fusion, he can play straight ahead,
He can swing too.
Yeah.
He's got all that, man.
Yeah.
And he's got a touch too.
Yes, yes he does. Who are the other two musicians you saw?
Okay. Jimmy Hawks playing with Ross on the road. Okay, I never heard of him before. Yeah, three cats I never heard of before. Who went on the cover of Downbeat and all that? See, this is what I'm trying to get to. It's like, let me finish the point before then I'll continue. I said I would rather not be getting no play at all. No recognition, no visibility, not at all. I would rather have that than to be getting a whole bunch of play and not be playing shit. I've seen that happen. Here's the chosen cat, You know, the industry, he's the cat. And I say, oh wow, that's great, let me go check him out. You go check him out, it's like, so these were three killing cats. Let me tell you, terrible. Okay, now, these are three cats, man. Let me tell you. I'm 19 years old. I never heard of none of them, man. And they rearranged my molecules. You know, they knocked my socks off with the soul. But that made me understand is it was happening. What New York was about. New York, let me tell you, New York, there's a bunch of motherfuckers here who are playing their ass off that aren't on the crest of the wave of the media.
Right.
That's what New York represents. That's the thing I love. New York represents the underdog.
Always has.
Always has, man. You know, and not just in music, man.
Literary,
fashion,
art,
painting, and all that. You know, and like, okay, I grew up in the middle of America, and I was trying to decide should I go east or west. And I went out with LA for a minute, New York for a minute, and my conclusion was that LA's the place we moved to when we already established, like Berkeley and Wayne and Miles and all these cats.
Michael Carvin is out there now.
Well, see, him and his old lady, they're retired.
They're retired, yeah.
Grooving like a big dog.
And I bet he's playing golf every day.
You know he's playing golf. And her too. So like, New York is a place for the struggling, for the don't nobody know them. You got something to offer. And it's not like about, see, New York can nurture you while you're trying to make your way and find your way up the ladder. LA kind of defeats you because
been there, done that.
That's right. You think what I'm saying, man?
Been to the mountaintop. You know, I get it. And you know what's funny? Going back to Billy Cobham, George told me the story. George Cables told me the story about, you know, when he was in high school, he and Billy used to play together.
Queensborn.
That's right. And he said that he told me that Billy had it. Billy had it then. He was a special cat. He was, you can't take away from George either, but
yeah, right.
But Cobham was one of those. George really told me this story about how he said there was a certain depth and maturity to him when he was like 14, 15.
From early on,
early on, yeah. And I could see how you could gravitate to him when you came.
I got a story of life to tell you about Billy Cobham, which is the reason ever in a day I will forever be his boy. Let me tell you, this is like 76, 77. I'm funking out with David Sam. We were opening up for the George Duke, Billy Calvin. Okay.
I totally forgot about that group.
You remember that band?
That was John Schofield.
Schofield was in that band.
Yes.
And I think Stanley Clark
Yes,
might
yes.
have been in there too, right?
I think so. Yes,
Okay,
yes, he
okay,
was.
So I'm funking like a big dog with David Sanborn. And like, less than a handful of drummers that I've talked to who experienced this. The floorboard of my bass drum pedal, the cast iron, cracked in half. So you know what that means? Yeah. I'm fucked.
Yeah.
This is in the middle of the set, in the middle of the song. No bass drum. You fucking. And I'm saying, oh man, what am I gonna do? I'm fucked, man. It's like you funking out. No bass drum.
Like having a car with no engine.
That's right. That's right. And I'm saying, oh man. I'm screwed. So it just so happened that we really happened to be watching. I'll never forget this, man. All of a sudden, shoom! Billy sent his roadie with one of his pedals. His roadie got down while I'm still trying to play. Got down on his knees. I turned this way. He put another pedal on, took my pedal off. Boom, I was back in action. I will never forget that. Because Billy could have said, but he ain't that kind of cat.
person, right?
He couldn't live with it himself. He understood. He saw I was in trouble, man. He saw I was in big trouble. I mean, it would be one thing if we're swinging, I could try to skate, but this is a funk gig, man. He saw I was in trouble, man, and he sent his load in there. I would never ever forget this. You know, and this was '77. It still leaves an imprint on me as if I'm talking about it like this yesterday. It's about camaraderie.
Yeah. Victor Lewis, what does jazz music mean to you?
Jazz music means being a rebel. Jazz music to me means keeping strapped, one foot on the legacy, the other foot on your foot, where you want to take it. You know, because it's part of being a young blood. You know, young bloods are supposed to be hard-headed, can't tell them nothing, and they want to do it the way they want to. But in order to just get your prerequisite chance, you gotta study the master, or else it's like in order to know how to make a free throw shot, you gotta study making free throw shots. It's like all the heavyweights in the NBA who work on free, they're still blowing in the game because it takes more than no shot, practice. And so, like, you see the different cats have their different ways. You know, it's like Will Chamberlain, it's like that. Oscar Robertson. I'm talking about cats back in my day. Oscar Robertson was like, he would bring it up like that, but he would shoot it on him. Everybody's got their own lean on it, but the moral of the story, you got to get it into the mass. And so the moral of the story, you got to play music, but it's got to be your own way. But it's got to be valid for music. Otherwise, get the fuck out of here.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Terry Motor Coffee Room here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the legendary Victor Lewis for his time. Also, people, please like, share, subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.